Evening. Hey, it's Wilbert Cook again, a Hand Up Recovery Home show, where we talk about how to help people recover from alcoholism and substance abuse primarily. However, we're today transitioning to being more helpful in other areas. Sometimes violence intervention, sometimes mental health, other times just being an advocate to help people locate, find services. One thing I love is rather than always talk about us and what we do, there's dozens of other organizations that are heavily funded, even though Trump pulled millions of dollars, billions of dollars from the agencies, the hospitals, the mental health institutions, the social service agencies, the health service agencies. It's still billions of dollars still going in through the state, the county, and the city. So there's plenty of services still out there that people don't know about. And it's ridiculous, the billions they spend, and then we wonder how Trump got in. If we spending billions, how do drug dealers, pimps, players, hustlers still control the street life of the city of Chicago or any other struggling communities? Because there's hundreds of millions of dollars for services being provided. So I'm of the opinion, and I've shown it's possible, you can take $200,000, $300,000 and do as much as most people out here doing with $1 million. So people have an argument when they say, I might as well try something different. If it don't work, it's no better than what I'm trying now, which is, unfortunately, our Democratic Party. I love them. I always vote Democrat, but I am astounded and I'm still baffled by the lack of development in the West Side community I grew up in. It looked like Little Beirut in '78 when it was a real Beirut that they recreate now. Almost 60 years later, they're recreating that situation over there in Beirut, Lebanon. But it was like that in '78. And our neighborhoods in Chicago have not been redeveloped yet. We're just getting there. They have rebuilt the real Beirut over there overseas by Iran, by the Arab nations of Dubai. They have rebuilt those areas in 30 years. They rebuilt those and they still have us bearing from the 1968 riots and then keep complaining or acting like they don't understand why things so bad in the West Side of Chicago. And they need to tell the truth on the history. And one thing I agree with Mayor Brandon Johnson on 100%. He was left with a bunch of problems in Chicago and a bunch of money given away to big business. That Skyway still hurts the city of Chicago revenue stream. That was billions of dollars that could have been still in the revenue stream every 3 years. $200-300 million off the Skyway. And we would still be earning that through all the traveling back and forth to Indiana and other connecting states up that Skyway and other towns. And we lost that revenue for a couple $1 billion up front, which got spent on the previous backlog of bills that the city owed. So within a couple years, the $2 billion spent, but they got a long-term lease for 50 plus years, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. And then the same thing with the parking meters. They get some leases, long-term lease agreements for a few $1 billion that allow them to make billions every year for the next 70 years, 75 years in some cases. How ridiculous is that for anyone who knows simple, basic math? I went to a pretty good high school, but I also was a great student before then. That's how I got to go to this outstanding school. Matter of fact, I'm representing them now, Lawrenceville School. Look them up, Lawrenceville, New Jersey. It costs $92,000 a year to go there now, room and board included. And $50,000 to just go get the education if you live in the Princeton area. or Newark or Trenton or anywhere in that Brunswick area or in that New York, New Jersey area where you can jump a train into town and get you a great education, or drive in an hour or two every day when you able to drive. Half of them get licenses at 16. Nobody bothers them. They're not as cumbersome about it as they are in the African American communities throughout the city of Chicago, elsewhere in the nation, of always trying to see if our kids doing something nefarious. The worst part is why they may be doing it, because the other opportunities haven't been opened up. These hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars going into these communities. And I'm talking about it because it's been on my heart the last few weeks, especially this past weekend. And I've been talking to people about it, and it first hit me when we were working on the re-election of Congressman Davis a few years ago. And all the money he's brought back to our district, and our poor areas still look so poor and barren. And the problem is, when Congressman Davis has brought these billions back to CTA and others, they invested in other areas of the city. Other people living in other communities got the money. He brought it back to the 7th district. Whatever didn't get spent in the business district or creating a new business district in the Fulton Market area and the old Oprah Winfrey area, near West Side and all of that, it had spent downtown. But it was really half of it, if not most of it, was meant to help rebuild truly blighted, struggling communities like ours. But because of the legalese and what they call generalization, blighted was stretched this wide for big business to take advantage of it more than poor communities getting affordable housing, getting new housing stock, getting housing stock renovated. Most of our leadership had been handpicked for the last 20 years. And they complain about Brandon Johnson trying to pick people or people's family and or close associates for these positions. It's always been done that way. Why is it such a big issue now that Brandon's doing it? They never jumped down Rahm Emanuel back like that. They didn't dare say that much about Daley doing it too often. So what's the problem now? The only difference I see is, honestly, he's a black man. I'm not afraid to tell the truth, but I've been penalized, and I get penalized, and that's life. I'm glad I'm a man of faith. I believe in God, but most of all, I believe in divine destiny as well, that there's a purpose in the universe that will allow you to tell the truth and move forward. There are people who want the truth, will help reward the truth. Now, in all honesty, almost every year I get asked to turn it to the Republican Party, and I haven't. Why? Because I'm not in any political arena. I don't do policy to make money. I don't do it to self-serve. I do it to help my community, enhance my community, get resources in the community. So the reason I'm talking about these things now is I want everyone who has their $10 million worth of contracts, their $15 million, $20 million worth of contract, their $50 million worth of contract, is to streamline those executive positions, middle management positions that are unnecessary, and put it boots on the ground in the community. I want more people in the community. I've seen where even CVI, Community Violence Intervention, I've been in a room with 500 people and only 200 of them at best I know work on the streets of Chicago. How is this 500 people, as bad as the streets are, in a room where there's only 200 at best, 150 workers who actually work the community? Now, there are other workers who weren't there, but likewise for the 300 and something members who in plus jobs, who studying violence, who are training and this, that, and the other, or planning to train and writing books and doing statistics for 3-4 years, while we know the problem been existing for 30 years out there in the West Side communities, Inglewood. So, I mean, come on, you all still studying it and people still getting paid and enriched to keep studying something we know the solution is to get out there and help turn people's lives around. Let's be perfectly honest. We set this disaster up. Good people not doing nothing, good people not saying nothing, good people with good intentions who could finally line their own pockets. And they felt it's easy to get 300,000. Somebody was mentioning to me the other day, just yesterday, in church actually, that I didn't know some of these agency executives make $200,000, $300,000 a year. While sometimes they go in austerity and won't pay their line staff that only make 20, 25, 30,000, 40,000 a year. And they'll have them waiting for the check or waiting for the next funding stream to kick in so then they can reload the treasury with the incoming grant money. And it's a whole system there. I know it because I've worked it. And I've worked it on a small level and been as efficient as others. But I also worked on a small level and I ate $10,000, $12,000 worth of a budget myself until the money came in to get my people in my struggling community working. If I did that with my little money, with that little few $100,000, what could these people with 20 million, 2 million, 40 million do if they was willing to invest in the very communities they being enriched by? It's not just the people getting all the money at the oil industry. It's not all the computer people. It's not all the AI people. You know, as they say, Trump want us distracted and Trump calls fake news. Part of it is fake on both sides of the aisle. Let's just get honest. If it wasn't for the foolishness of the Democratic Party not to ride Joe Biden all the way to back into a second term, because they, either way, the rich parts and the elitists of the Democratic Party, elitists of the black community, elitists of the Latino community, either way, they're still benefiting. May not be as much as they wanted if they're in social service. If they're in business, they're benefiting as much as anybody else. Republican or Democrat, they all benefiting because they're on the rich side of the track. So when they flipped from Biden, they knew in the end it was a zero-sum game. They could come out not losing anything. The losers were going to be all of us on the bottom. All of us trying to get to the middle, upper middle, or even possibly even one day be, quote, a millionaire. Even if it's just 1 million in property or a couple million in property, we could at least claim millionaire status finally. But in trillion-dollar economies, that's not a whole lot. You know, I mean, so that's the honest to God truth. That really is not a whole lot in a multi-trillion-dollar economy. Any day now, they're going to announce our first trillionaire. And Elon Musk is in the process of developing the first $1 trillion company outright. Not going to have $1 trillion, going to be worth $1 trillion like any day now. It's worth hundreds of billions already. And the IPO, which is their individual prospectus of opportunity, which they give to the people, is similar to grants for little small nonprofits, middle-sized nonprofits, even big nonprofits. But his IPO is worth billions of dollars to private industry investors. And those who get in on the private side before it goes public, they get things for $20, $100, $200 that once it hit the public and gets traded, it's going to double, triple, quadruple overnight, literally overnight. While we sleep, it will go from a $50 stock can go to $200 stock, and a bigger stock can even go further up. So things can happen immediately. So that's the problem. They should have rolled Biden into the White House, then let him transfer power because of his mental health challenges and because of his cognitive decline. Transfer power to Kamala Harris. Whether it's in the first year, first 6 months, whether it was in the beginning of the second year. She would have then had a chance to build a track record, helping more people across America. And then we had a potential to get 3 consecutive terms. Had it been handled right by the brilliant folks that weren't so brilliant. But they didn't have anything to really lose. They played both sides of the aisles. And you're going to say, how am I so confident being a middle class African American male from one of the poorest communities in the United States of America? Well, two reasons you can count on why I know I'm right. One, I know some of the richest folks in the world because I've been blessed to meet some of them when they were younger, and now they're worth hundreds of millions of new money. And I met people when I was in my teens who were worth hundreds of millions of old money, 2, 3, 4 generations rich. You know, people that played and golfed with the Kennedys, the Marshall Fields, third generation, the Walgreens, second, third, fourth generations. I met people. The Slave Maker Locks, that's what Master Lock is now, and what it's another new lock company that's taking over the stage, Connect or something, but different lock companies over the last 50 years. But if you go back from 1980 to the turn of the century in early 1900s, Slave Maker Locks was the big locks. Well, I was in class with Sam Slave Maker IV. All right, I'm in a book of a school that's over 100 and some years old as the minority that did well, socially especially, and academically, I survived, having come from one of the worst school systems in America. It says that in the book. Check it out. The Lawrenceville School, the history of one of the finest institutions in America. And I chose to come back and work all these years trying to help my community. Unfortunately, I had a decent government job to support me. I had a great mother who still, even after struggling to help me when I was younger, as long as I was willing to help in the community, she was glad I was doing it. She was glad. When she was on her deathbed dying from cancer, she said, "Baby, I'm so glad you didn't take all that education and go just live your life and leave everybody in the community behind. Keep helping the community." And when she said that, I felt obligated. Now it's almost 20 years later, I did what I could. Now I'm going to help people on different levels. I've tried to help them recover from substance abuse. I've tried to help them recover from alcoholism. I've tried to help avoid some of the pharmaceutical things that doctors help create and they never take credit for and never blame for. All the pharmaceutical junkies that they created in America, everywhere, in every community, rich, poor, they have created pharmaceutical junkies. The medical institution, the doctors that are supposed to be responsible for saving lives have ruined millions of lives across America. They holding Walgreens responsible for all the scripts that went through there and all the amphetamines and other things that went to help make meth. And what helped all the Oxycontins they sold over the counter before the Mexican cartel started making the powders and send them straight here in powder form, straight from Mexico. See, and we blame Mexico for the fentanyl, but the fentanyl originally was sent here for our legal pharmaceutical companies. The Oxycontins was originally sent to our pharmaceutical companies. Let's tell the whole truth on everybody today that helped destroy our communities. Not just our poor communities, because we getting help now because your middle class, upper middle class kids is on our streets dying out there on the west side. They coming up 290 from every community across, every upper class community across Chicago and the suburbs to get their drugs on the streets of Chicago. Why? Because their family no longer want them on the streets in the neighborhood, ruining the family name. So they can come in obscurity and get high and ruin their life in the poor communities of the west side. They can live in what we call abandonments. People who've been down and out know what those are. Abandonments is when homeless people take over a property. And now their squatters' rights have been reduced. They were really trying to help people not end up back in the streets while they were squatting in good people's homes. But like everything, people take advantage of it. So folks start taking over legitimate people's properties before they could get the keys. Some irresponsible realtor or people that know real estate game and gave them a lease to a property they don't even own. Now they don't want to leave. So now the laws have changed, but also the laws changed because those people dealing with substance abuse and all that were abusing them same laws. Oh, we live here now, so you the new owner or not, it was abandoned for the last 5 years. We've been here. Evict us, and then the police come out, and they can't throw people out in the street anymore because the laws have changed. They would have to then tell you, you got to take a squatter to build in court. They have no legal right to be in your property. They took it over because of their struggling lifestyles and deteriorating lifestyle. And now they're going to help deteriorate your lifestyle if you can't get them out in a reasonable time. And you just bought a piece of property for you and your family, or a piece of property to invest. So when they talk about substance abuse as a family disease, they're absolutely right. But I want us to start seeing substance abuse what it truly is. It's an American nightmare. It is every community's disease. It affects families, whether it's the children or the significant other, whether it's the wife, whether it's cousins, uncles, whether it's grandparents. This disease destroys lives. It destroys generations of families. It destroys entire communities. And other communities, in order to try to avoid some of the tragedy, they compound the struggle of negative communities. They outcast their own kids and sent them to the poor communities of America to live in obscurity and possibly die from their addictions. Half of which, if not most of which, in the upper class communities was caused by pharmaceutical drugs. And because of the status issue, and I learned that as a 15, 16-year-old at the Lawrenceville School, 6 miles from the Princeton University. The, quote, Princeton University of secondary education, which is high school. Simply put, high school. Closest one we have on the west side is St. Ignatius down here on Roosevelt Road, the pillar of education in Chicago. And most people, they don't talk about it because most of us still can't get in it and not going to get in it. And most people on the west side don't know about it because they don't want you to, because they don't want you trying to get in, especially if you're African American. They're a little more tolerant of Latinos. But the reality is substance abuse has been perpetuated as a street disease, and that of struggling people, but it's really a American disease that has been exacerbated by the capitalistic system we live in. People have decided they'll make money even if it destroys lives. And then they can hide their hand after they throw the stone of Oxycontin, fentanyl, and other drugs into the streets. They can hide their hands because they're rich. And the institutions protect them while them poor guys are still in jail 20 years later. Marijuana is legal, and some people still in there doing a 50-year, 60-year case on a marijuana. One has medically been legal for about 8, 9 years at least, and now it's been legal, period, for about 5, 6 years, or 15 years medical marijuana could be legal, and 9, 10 years at least it's been legal, period, in the state of Illinois. And we still have some people still long-term sentences. The criminal justice system criminalized poor people's medical use and abuse of drugs while letting many that help perpetuate the problem off the hook, who were rich, had means, had connections, had relationships, or because America loves to still tell a lie. And it's not even that one, ain't even a racist lie. That's a capitalistic lie perpetuated on poor people and poorer people and people that get ill because they have access to drugs. You know, this was a heartfelt moment to talk about a lot of what really has gone on to help destroy these lives. We're trying to rebuild it. Help a hand up rebuild. Any of you all philanthropists or anybody out there get a hold of this. Help me attack the whole real problem. Help all those kids, black, white, Latino, on all levels, that's struggling with alcoholism, substance abuse. Help me rebuild America, starting on the west side of Chicago, one person at a time, one community at a time, one family at a time, you know, one school at a time. Some of these poor schools been ravaged by addiction. The kids are suffering because the parents are strung out. We need services on every level. I want to do it on the ground up. For real, as they say in the streets. You know, I want a fresh start to really attack the problem. I want boots on the ground. I don't want you to give me another study. We could take, hey, me and you, we can fund me to take the 10 best studies and we implement three main ideas from each one, and we go out here and we build programs to attack the problem using what's already been studied, and to build on the work and not build on more studies, more people training this, training that. Let's use the training that's already been paid for by our federal money, our tax dollars, in all these communities. I thank you all. It's been a wonderful evening. It's been a great, heartfelt, true fact-giving, fact-providing situation. And there's a lot of people that's culpable of creating a disaster that's happening in urban America, suburban America, rural America. And it's a travesty. They don't talk about all that goes on in rural America. All them poor white kids that's dying from diseases of addiction because of the pharmaceutical companies as much as the people with street drugs. And the street drugs been changed because the pharmaceutical drugs were so much more potent. So with that, let's go save some lives. You know, we're out there doing it now. Let's help build it up. And we don't have to blame it on Trump. Regular people, regular millionaires, billionaires with their heart can give a few $1,000s, a few $100,000 to call agencies. They have it. Let's help build them agencies up until our government gets a little more generous again and helping. And in our area with a bunch of Democrats that we can help until we get a new administration in. It's okay, but let's stop blaming him and take full responsibility for how we set the stage for him to create the situation he's in, and to be able to point at our mistakes and or our compliance and complexity with some fraud, which is for real. And now he uses that to cut all these programs. All right, I'll keep coming back, as they say in the recovery rooms. More will be revealed, as we always do. And we're going to help save lives no matter whether we get $1 from you or not. Why? Because it's in my heart, and I'll share my dollar. And please donate. We 501c3. Hand Up Recovery Homes. You can reach me at wecook3289@yahoo.com. You can call us at 773-213-0802. And we thank you for a wonderful evening.